This is Business Rockstars, where we introduce you to the rock stars of the business world so you can become a rock star too.
All right, let's turn on some creativity. Let's turn on some imagination. Let's turn on building something, utilizing those skills. Where can you learn that? Well, probably over at Disney University. Ken Orkowski, Business Rockstars. Joining me in the studio, the guy who wrote the book on it, Disney U. Doug Lipp is joining us, generally up in Sacramento. He is journeyed down here, I would say you pilgrimage down here, to share the words of Disney U. Hey, Doug, how are you?
Hey, Ken, thanks very much. It's always nice to leave the center of the universe and come to L.A.
You're a goof. That's what you call me on the phone, too. I'm in the center of the universe. Really? Sacramento?
Yeah, they roll the sidewalks up at 7 p.m., and I'm happy with that.
Oh, okay, fine. Now, you used to be down here.
Yeah.
Were you over at Disney? Did you work there?
I worked at Disneyland. I was on the startup team for Tokyo Disneyland, which opened 30 years ago this last April, and also at the Disney Studios in Burbank.
So you got to really get that whole feel on both sides then, right?
Yeah, we saw the culture of the theme parks, which is essentially Disney's factory, and then we saw the headquarters, which any organization, headquarters and frontline are always going to be slightly different.
Now, I just got back recently from Disney World, okay, which I never realized that, Epcot, it dwarfs everything. Epcot's massive. Right. Epcot was an expensive process. Mm-hmm. I believe it's one of the more expensive of all the parks in North America. Right. Hong Kong was expensive. Tokyo, France. Did Walt Disney ever envision this?
It's hard to say. That's a really good question, Ken. And one of the things that many people debate to this day is, what would Walt think? What would Walt do? Fill in the blanks. Nobody really knows. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why the organization had some difficult times over the years, is because people were afraid to step out of the patterns that Walt set. And I know some people that would say, gosh, if Walt were alive today, it would be completely different. So it's hard to envision what he would be thinking right now.
So what is Disney U then? Is that a derivative of what Walt's ideas would be?
Really good point. Disney, it's known as Disney University within Disney. And it's the training and development division of the company. But what I write about in my book, Disney U, is that Disney University, per se, is a reflection of Walt's values. And that's something that my mentor at Disneyland, Van France, who was hired directly by Walt, perpetuated. And that's what's lacking in a lot of organizations. So Disney U, yes, it is a training entity, but Disney University truly does reflect the values of the company.
And what are the values of the company?
Well, Van France did a very good job of succinctly putting his answers. And he said, it's innovation, it's leadership support, it's education, and it's entertaining at the same time. Those four things he called the four circumstances of the Disney University. And Walt started training his animators back in the late 30s, early 40s, and it perpetuates, and it goes to this day where nobody is too big to participate in learning.
So when we say Disney, let me make sure we break it up, okay? Because you have obviously the studios that makes all this content. You have Buena Vista, you have all that. And then you have the theme parks. Then you have merchandising. Where do you think the heart of Disney is right now?
Well, the theme parks and the resorts and the cruise lines, I mean, that's what most customers know. We call them guests, but that's what the population really knows. Certainly the film products are well known, but as far as coming face to face with Disney cast members or Disney employees, it still resides in the theme parks, the resorts, and the cruise line.
It does. Okay. And that's where you really focus on, because that's the touch point.
That's the touch point, and that's really where Disney University resides to this day, is in those environments.
Okay, Doug Lipp's joining us. His book is called Disney U. It's available right now. It's how Disney University develops the world's most engaging, loyal, and customer-centric employees. That's the key. It's the employees. I did a study that looked at human interaction with customers. And everyone would think with automation, it's great. You just get in and get out. But it showed with more technology, there was less customer satisfaction. Human interaction at hotels, hospitality environments was really important.
Exactly. In fact, one of the things that Walt always wanted was to have that human interaction. And one of the things that he did with Van was to say, let's create the happiest place on earth. And it's going to be more than just the rides, the attractions, and the hundreds of thousands of moving parts in an audio animatronic figure. It's that cast member who kneels down to that child who just dropped his or her popcorn and consoles them and then from behind his back pulls a free box of popcorn, which blows
That's
everybody's
magical.
mind. It's magical.
I want
right?
to see that. And last statistic that I thought was pretty fascinating, especially going. Have you been to Disney World recently?
Yes.
You have.
Yes.
There's lines.
Yes.
Those lines are really important. No, and the reason I just a study, I had the opportunity to kind of go behind the scenes, and they told me with the Fast Pass, the original one where you could buy for an additional $80 and you get right to the front of the line, they found that the people that did not stand in line didn't connect with the family as much, and they didn't go back to Disney as much. They found the lines actually created stronger bonds amongst family members. So the lines, regardless of how long they were, they're important.
Well, we always called it the pre-show. I mean, that's part of the experience.
Yeah.
Is not just the attraction or the ride you're on. It's the pre-show and then the show, and then afterwards, of course, you get dumped into the retail environment where you spend all your money on
Which is smart.
whatever you just saw.
It's brilliant. So if you go to a corporate space, like for example, let's give me a business, and I want you to use a brand name that you feel a little Disney magic is needed.
A little Disney magic is needed. Well, there are a lot of organizations.
Like, does Walmart need it? Have they lost it?
I think most organizations have, because everybody's looking at moving people through the systems rapidly, much like you're saying, is forget about the lines. Let's just get people in and out. Let's automate everything. So I don't think there are very many examples of organizations that get it right. I mean, on a positive side, I would say Cheesecake Factory does an outstanding job because they've got good food, good products, smiling hosts and hostesses, and the environment is welcoming and fun, and they get a lot of people through it. So I think they do a very Disney-like job of maintaining the environment and getting the volume through to make a profit.
So the key, again, is you want the person to walk away going, that was a good experience.
Exactly. And I don't know how much time we've got now. I've got
time.
Okay, I've got an answer. You talked about trust earlier.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I see lacking in businesses, forget about lines for a minute, is trust. And you said very succinctly, win-wins, trust. And that puts it right there. And recently I do a lot of consulting work in addition to my speaking. And I was doing some work for a major corporation that all of your listeners would know. I'm not at liberty to say who they are. I was doing a retreat for their leadership team. 15 to 20 CEO level, C-level executives in the back of the room, and 30 vice presidents sitting at rounds. Mm-hmm. And it's supposed to be about team building. And about 20 minutes into the presentation, I said, what's up with the peanut gallery in the back of the room here? We're supposed to be about inclusion. And at the end of the day, their senior HR person said, thank you for calling them on that, because they're talking about inclusion and trust, but there are these barriers to communication. And whether it's millennials, whether it's 80-year-olds, if you're not connecting and having a trustful environment, nothing's going to work, no matter how fancy your product is.
Any of the listeners that are listening, if you ever get a chance to come to our studio, which you're seeing right now for the first time, Doug, this is a cooperative work environment where it's open. I'm not sure if you walked around in here.
We did.
It's open offices. There's companies in here that are worth millions and millions of dollars, and they're right next to startups, and everyone's coming up with collaborative ideas, right? This is a cool environment. This is kind of a new idea. McDonald's started off like this. Have you ever been to McDonald's up in Oak Brook, Illinois? It's open offices. Facebook is open offices. And I'm wondering if that's where you just said separation. You have upper management, entry-level employees, they separate. Is that a problem? Should it be collaborative?
Physical separation is one thing, and then spiritual or mental separation is another. And I frankly think that there are ways that you can build collaboration even if you have traditional offices. I was at Hamburger University earlier in the year. I did a job for McDonald's for 21,000 owner-operators. Wow. And the president of McDonald's got up and said, you owner-operators need to get into your stores, walk across your parking lots, and pick up trash. And the place got quiet. And then he said, and we in Oak Brook need to get out of our offices and visit you more. He is leading the way in breaking down those barriers, even though there are thousands of miles between Oak Brook and many of the McDonald's operators. So I don't think distance or walls is the issue. I think it's when people are connecting, and are you saying things and then following up on it? Or is it just posters on the wall that say, our employees are our most important resource, and then you treat your employees like garbage?
So I want to ask you to give us some, let's say, 5 massive, powerful points that you got out of writing the book. Because you sat down, you sat back and you go, all right, I got to get creative. I got to put this down. How long did it take you to write the book?
It was about a year process, 6 months in backside in chair, but a year of thinking and then 6 months of writing. So it was a total of a year.
And you came out with a quality product. You're on the speaking gig now. Everybody wants you. You're one of these sought after speakers because you have a unique insight to all these magical formulas, which I want you to bring to us. What you got out of the book that you can teach us. So there's a lot of people that are listening from corporate America that are going, all right, how can we instill some of these values that Doug found? Okay, so Doug Lips joining us. We're going to find out exactly some of these secret insights from the book Disney You, and let's see where you could apply it to your business. All right, you ready for that? I am, man. Let's do it. Go get the book right now. Right now, we'll have it on businessrockstars.com, a link to the book. Ken Rakowski, you listen to Business Rockstars.
This is Business Rockstars, where we introduce you to the rock stars of the business world, so you can become a rock star too.
So how can you engage your customers with great employees? What do you need to teach them? What are the secrets to making sure your employees are customer-centric? I don't know. Do you? Well, I know who does. Our in-studio guest does. Doug Lips going to help us understand. I'm Ken Rakowski. This is Business Rockstars. Doug has written a book called Disney You, and it's taken about a year and a half to really get this thing concise out. It's out on the market right now. We could go to Amazon.com, get it. Or do you have a favorite bookstore to go to?
Well, Barnes & Noble is one of the remaining bookstores, but yeah, Amazon.com, BNN.com, Barnes & Noble stores, that's available all over the place, ebooks as well as hardback.
I miss bookstores. You know, there's one right around the corner here that you could walk in, you could sit down, and you could read a book and read a magazine. And there's people that don't push you out. They want you to enjoy it.
Exactly.
It's a great customer experience, right?
Yep.
Other bookstores, the ones that are not around anymore, want you in, they want you out.
Well, if you go to Powell's up in Portland, that's like a Disneyland for book readers, isn't it?
Yeah, or what's the one in San Francisco, Northern Lights, Southern Lights, or whatever it is. I mean, you're right. There are certain, and actually independent bookstores are on the rise.
Exactly.
Right? Numbers are up because it's that customer experience.
As are vinyl records, so something's amazing, right?
Customer experience, right? You got to go to retro to feel good again. But you wrote this book, and we talked about customer experience because people want to walk away feeling good about it.
Right.
You had to have some massive takeaways. There were probably like epiphanies going, oh my gosh, I never even realized that while writing this. What are some of the things that you discovered while putting this book together?
Well, Ken, I've been a consultant for 20 years, and I keep seeing the same mistakes, and I see the same patterns of failure, and I also see similar patterns of success, and I reflected a lot on my career. And one of the things that's very difficult to do is to write about an iconic organization like Disney or Walt Disney or my mentor, Van France. So one of the things I learned was I had to get over my own fear of making mistakes, and I had to kind of live what I talk about is take a risk and get out there and do something. So that was one of the first things I realized, is that I could get past that writer's block. And then I interviewed.
Because you never wrote before.
This is my 8th book, but I've never written a book that's as difficult because of the emotions involved. As an example, all of the executives that I met with and interviewed, former Disney executives, many of whom met Walt, worked with Walt directly, I would interview for hours, face to face or on the phone. And at the end of every interview, the equivalent of this occurred. They'd reach out, touch my shoulder, and with tears streaming down their face say, "Doug, thank you for writing about this. Just do me a favor." "Yeah, what's that?" Do a good job. And it's like, okay, one more brick on my back. But I was able to reconnect with lessons that I learned not only from Van France, the man who founded Disney University, but also many executives. Jim Cora, who retired as the chairman of Disneyland International. Dick Cook, who was the chairman of Disney Studios. Men and women who were fundamentally sound and creative at the same time. So, as I mentioned earlier, Van France basically said the success of the university was based on innovation and leadership support and education and entertainment. So I'll give you an example of that. With innovation, this guy Van, in his 60s, was more creative than those of us in our 30s, and he would pound his fist on the table when we would come up with reasons why we couldn't innovate because of budgets. And he would say, and this is a quote from the book, "Budgets might be tight, but creativity is always free."
I like that.
You know, I mean, it's just so cool. And that represented the challenges that Walt laid before Van in creating the happiest place on earth. Don't give me excuses. Create something from nothing.
Wow, that's a T-shirt.
So there's
that's a T-shirt.
You are quite the entrepreneur. I love that.
It is. That's a great T-shirt. But I think that the .com world thinks about that at times too.
Yeah.
Budget, a shoestring budget. Let's create $1 billion company.
Exactly.
I love that.
The other thing, so there's innovate, and then there's support, leadership support. And I oftentimes see senior executives complaining about their employees or the mid-managers not really getting it. And I'll say, well, what kind of training are they getting? What kind of culture have you created? How do you get involved? And oftentimes they're hands off. So I mentioned Dick Cook earlier. Here's the chairman of Disney Studios. When I'm training 18 to 85-year-olds at Disneyland, they're usually happy to be there and they're an easy audience. But if you're dealing with 45 to 50-year-old grizzled Hollywood veterans at Disney Studios, sometimes they come into a training program kind of arms folded, mind folded. I don't need to be here.
Can I just use the word ego?
You can use the word ego, sure.
Okay, is it accurate?
In LA, there's a few egos. Yeah, we all have egos. There's no question about that.
Holds up the 405 at times as the ego.
My, but
Okay,
when we would call Dick and say, "Hey, can you come in and help lead a workshop?" He would be there in a heartbeat. And he's a brilliant guy. He started out as a monorail operator at the park, so he saw in his own eyes through his career senior executives not too big to come in and participate. Michael Eisner participated in the Disney University when he first showed up. So leadership support is huge. And then there's the education component.
Wait. I think you're just going off of leadership too fast.
Okay.
I think it's so important because leadership means you have to trust the person that's leading.
Exactly.
Right? And they're leading you in a direction where you're going to have an outcome.
Exactly.
How long does it take to go through the Disney University type course?
Usually it's about a 3-day onboarding process, with the first day being in orientation, learning about the history, the legends, the traditions of the company. And then day 2, day 3, you go to the operations divisions and you learn how to cook properly or how to ride, whatever, operations stuff, OJT.
Is it what people expected before they went in and when they got out that is exactly what their expectations were? Or is it one of those, wow, I didn't think it was going to be like that?
I think it's the expectations are it's going to be another brain dump and you just sit there and listen, but it's experiential. And most important, Ken, it's not just the fancy posters that are on the wall of Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck or Buzz Lightyear. It's, for example, when we would talk about teamwork and everybody pitches in, all the leaders pitch in, we all pick up trash because that's what customers expect at a Disney property. And at the end of a training session, the last hour of the day, we would take our new hires through the park for a tour. 80,000, 90,000 people in the park, and my new hires are seeing multiple examples of non-custodians bending over and picking up trash. And at that instant, there's trust, and the leadership concept is dialed in.
It's kind of sounding like a cult.
Drink the Kool-Aid, sprinkle the pixie dust on, and you're good to go.
Doug Lip is joining us. Disney uses his book. You can go Amazon. It's everywhere right now. It's one of the hottest books out there. You talk about the school. Let's just now drop this on a corporate structure. When you walk in and consult, and this is your 8th book you mentioned.
Yes.
You probably have a lot of takeaways from this right now.
Yes.
Enhanced your consulting ability. What are you using to spruce up or to turbocharge companies by what you've learned?
I challenge the leaders of the companies to do what Walt Disney would do, and every leader that was a source of inspiration to me at Disneyland was to get out and metaphorically walk the park.
Walk the park. So get on the floor.
Get on the floor. Get to visit your customers. Go out and touch base with your employees. And there is no excuse for not doing that. And sometimes I run into people that are more comfortable looking at spreadsheets and playing with computers instead of getting out of their office and connecting with people. There is no reason why that can't be done.
Kind of like the show Undercover Boss.
Exactly.
It's probably one of the best shows out there because it really
Yep.
shows, hey, I didn't know it was like this.
Exactly.
So have you helped out anyone in this space to where they gotten out of their proverbial office and actually walked the floor?
A number of executives, and it's both in the United States and throughout the world. In fact, I leave for Spain on Monday to help a major bank that's had some difficulties with all kinds of regulatory issues because the previous leadership team focused on money as opposed to trust and doing business the right way. So, yes, I do a lot of work with all kinds of industries, hospitals included.
It sounds like banks and investment organizations need this really bad.
Banks.
Because they don't know their customers anymore. They just know about the dollar. I mean, look at the big banks right now. They're all in trouble because of this.
Exactly.
So I'm asking you about some massive takeaways that are helpful to us listening right now. I believe that when everybody reads a book, they always want to almost have a Facebook-like attitude, like, I can't wait to share this. Oh, this is a share. I like, and now I want to share. I want you to think about your 3 or 4 hyper share things that everyone's going to want to share from the book. Not giving away the book, okay? The hyper share parts. I know I'm doing Facebook metaphors, right? I can't believe this is where my life is. So Disney used the book. Disney, Doug Lip, generally up in San Diego or Sacramento. You're here. By the way, L.A. need a little Disney use magic dust over here? Pixie dust, does it?
Just around the edges, yes.
Yeah, because you haven't seen it change much, huh?
It's still crowded. I'm glad I live in
Is that
Sacramento.
the only reason why you don't like L.A. is because it's crowded?
No, because the skiing isn't very good real close by.
If you have a helicopter.
Oh, yeah, okay. You just provide me yours, Ken, we'll be good.
I don't have a helicopter, but that's it. Is that it? You ski all the time?
I ski all the time. I go backpacking in Yosemite, which is 3 hours away from my house.
All right.
You know, little things like that.
All right. So, again, your 3 to 5 shares. You ready for that? Okay. You got to think about this, Doug. You got to think about the shares, the likes, the things that we could repost on our social media. Disney U. Go check out the book. Doug Lipp is in the studio. We'll find out what those share points are. You ready? I'm going to share this. We'll find out. Ken Rakowski. Listen, Business Rockstars. Everything you need to know around starting, funding, growing, and selling your business is over at businessrockstars.com.
This is Business Rockstars, where we introduce you to the rock stars of the business world, so you can become a rock star too.
I'm going to challenge our in-studio guest. His name is Doug Lipp. His book is called Disney U. I'm going to challenge him and find out what are the biggest points, the shares in his book. And the reason why I'm doing this is I'm going to treat him like a business right now. I'll explain what I mean. Ken Rakowski, Business Rockstars. So, Doug, the reason I bring this up is every time I have a business in here, regardless of what it is, if it's a startup, established business, I always ask for their 5 revenue sources, especially these startups. They scratch their head, they pull out their hair. Some of them walk away bald because they have to really somehow get to 5 because they think, oh, it's advertisement, it's banner ads. 5 is that magic number because 3 doesn't work, meaning you got 5, 3 won't work, 2 are the best. I'm asking you for 5 takeaways that are shares in your book. And the reason why is because 2 will probably resonate with somebody. Right. And I'm asking this because it's challenging because you and everything, this is your product right now is your book. This is your business card, which everyone needs a great book. And you got a great book here. I want to know, what are your 5 shares?
One of the first things that I learned, both at Disney and in a lot of organizations around the world, is something that we at Disney called plussing the show.
Plussing the show?
Yeah, it's improving the show. And again, it doesn't have to cost anything. One of my bosses at Disneyland was an 18-year-old ride operator on the Jungle Cruise, and Walt Disney came through and rode every single boat on Jungle Cruise.
Whoa, really?
And he got off the boats and he was upset. Walt was upset.
Why would he be upset?
Well... He got off the boats and he said, you know, we've invested millions of dollars in this infrastructure, in the rides, in the boats, in your costumes. And all these guests are getting on the boats and they're excited. And you're driving the boats through the deep, dark jungles of the Jungle Cruise, and the hippos jump out of the water and they spray the guests with water. And the guests are laughing and they're screaming and they're excited. And how are you guys driving the boats?
With their,
We're just like, another day, another hippo. I want you to be as surprised as the guests.
It's true.
You got to plus the show. And my boss said, you can imagine, we knew Walt was going to come back next week. So we spent the next week practicing looking surprised. What does that cost?
Nothing.
So plussing the show is one thing.
Awesome share. I liked it, and now I just shared it. Okay, it's reposted. I love it. Give me another one.
Well, the other one, as I mentioned earlier, is from my mentor, Van France, is money might be tight, creativity is free. Everybody complains about we don't have enough people, headcount is tight, budgets, regulations, why we can't do things as opposed to why we can do things. And Van was one of the biggest cheerleaders of kicking us in the backside. As an example, he said right now our orientation at Disneyland is not connecting with our 18-year-olds. Back then, that would be the millennials of today.
Right.
And we said, well, what's wrong with it? And he said, we have the orientation starting off with traditions and videos and Walt's stories and this. He says, those kids don't give a darn about that. They want to know how they look in their costumes.
It's true.
So let's reverse the order of orientation and bring the kids in and put them in their costumes first. Let them stand in front of a mirror, and now they'll listen to all the stuff you want to dump in their heads.
As their character.
As their character. He said, so creativity is free. Be creative in how you design your darn programs, guys.
I love that.
All right?
All right. Wait, hang on. Like, share, repost. Okay.
Wonderful.
Next.
Here's the next thing from Jim Cora, who was as I mentioned earlier, the retired chairman of Disneyland International. He started the Tiki Room, Enchanted Tiki Room 50
that
years ago.
That needs to be updated.
Well,
okay.
It's been updated. And he started Tokyo Disneyland, and he started Euro Disney. And here's a quote from Jim. Marketing is the time and money you spend to get people in the door. Training is the investment you make to get guests to come back and employees to stay. All too many organizations cut training the very first time the budget gets a little bit dicey, and they forget about, you know what, that's the flip side of marketing, is marketing's going to get them in the door, but if you have employees that don't act connected with each other and guests, you're going to lose them.
So it's retention of both guests and employees.
Precisely. And you're going to have turnover. For example, McDonald's, it costs $800 to hire a new crew member. But then if you don't train that crew member, where are they going to go? They're going to leave.
Gone.
So you're losing your money.
Okay, so let me make sure. Training really is the key for retention of both employees and of customers.
As long as what I said earlier, leadership supports it.
Got it. Hang on. Like, share, repost. What else you got?
Develop your sense of humor, and eventually it will develop you.
Okay, help me with this one.
This is a quote directly from Walt Disney as a high school editor of his newspaper, and this is a wonderful display.
I thought he got fired from his newspaper job because he didn't have enough ideas.
Gee, that's one of those urban legends that I've not been made aware of. But at the Disney Family Museum in San Francisco, this is a little poster that's up that has this quote from Walt. And this is the idea, is that we felt at Disney, and I see in the greatest organizations, and you see this around this building that you and I are in right now, is that if you're having fun and you're relaxed and there's a trusting environment, you will be more creative. That's what I take as the key message, is develop your sense of humor, learn to laugh at yourself, and you will also develop your business.
I like it. I'm going to share it. I'm not going to repost it yet because I need a little caveat to this.
All right.
Building that infectious environment.
Yes.
What do you need to do that? How do you do that? How do you build an infectious, not just laughing at yourself, but where you're building creativity that helps everyone out, including yourself? How do you build that?
I think it's when you have the leaders that are talking it,
going back to leadership,
doing it. Exactly. It always starts at the top. Okay. Culture always starts at the top.
Okay, repost.
Okay.
Got one more. What else you got?
The idea that
always the fifth is the hardest. By the way.
Yeah. The idea that you have to have dreamers and doers on your team. And that's just the beginning. I see a lot of startups and a lot of established organizations with dreamers. So the equivalent of the crazy thinker, the outside the box, the Steve Jobs, the Walt Disney. And then you have your operations guru who pay the taxes, negotiate with unions, and take care of building permits. Both equally important. But I see in only a small percentage, and in my consulting business around the world, maybe 5% of companies around the world have a succession plan where that dreamer and that doer are already being moved out. If you think they're going to be dead someday, they're going to leave, how do we backfill that? And I saw this occurring at Disney twice. I saw when, not personally, but I wasn't there, when Walt Disney passed away in 1966, there was no group of people, much less one person, to fill his shoes, and the company slowly spun out of control. And then fast forward 20 plus years, again at Disney, Michael Eisner, Frank Wells came on board. Frank Wells passes away in a helicopter accident. There is no one to fill his shoes. Company spills out of control. So to use a quote from another guy from my book, Disney, Marty Sklar, who was the chairman of Imagineering, Disney Imagineering, he said, Walt Disney had the uncanny ability to have one foot in the past and one foot in the future. Most teams don't have that in one person, much less the whole team. Past, present, and future, and sustainable is the key.
I need an easy way to share that on Facebook. What would be the title of that?
Have a sustainable culture.
Okay. I liked, shared, repost.
Is that 5 or is that?
It's 5.
That's 5. Oh,
and
my gosh.
By the way.
Do I get a smiley face now?
No, you get a pixie dust. You actually like that because you and your partner, your wife, are the show in the business.
Exactly.
The structure and the creativity.
Well, my wife is known as the Geppetto, and I'm the Pinocchio. She's actually pulling the strings, doing the real hard work, and I'm just bouncing around in front of audiences.
Last question. Now Disney is Pixar. It's Star Wars. It's all of these entities that didn't exist back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. It's a very different type of entity. How does it continue on the direction it's going, or does it have to change to include all this new brain power, creativity, and imagination?
I think all organizations have to evolve, be willing to change or be willing to perish, but also not to lose sight of the fact, and much like you talked in the first hour of your show today, is people still like to play and have fun with things and not just sit in their offices and play with electronics. They want to get out and manipulate things. They want to interact with their family members. And I think there's a need for the theme park environment where your moms and dads and kids can laugh and look at each other and smile, but also where you can have that high-tech experience that is something that everybody wants.
Doug Lipp, people want to find the book, Amazon.com, bookstores everywhere out there. It's called Disney U. Big letters, big red letters, Disney U. You want to go off and get the book. I also want to thank Brian Kessler for joining us. On Monday, we have John McAfee. John McAfee is going to join us. Many remember him down in the jungles of Belize trying to duck the authorities because he said he was innocent. Well, he was. He created one of the hottest antivirus software companies, and he's creating a brand new story of him. We're going to learn about his creativity and how we could reinvent ourselves. Everything.